Hello and welcome to this Business New Zealand update for Wednesday, the 30th of June. I'm Grant Walker, joined by Business New Zealand CEO Kirk Hope. Well, Kirk, Wellington region is now out of level 2 into level 1, right decision?
Yeah, I think so. We hadn't seen any community cases, and there had been widespread testing done. The contact tracing appeared to have worked, so I think, yeah, absolutely the right decision.
It's interesting because I said that if we got out of this, next Wellington Harbour will freeze. Well, it nearly did yesterday, of course, but it was so cold. But
Not bad.
nonetheless, it was very strange that, with 18 places, over 2,000 contacts and nothing, and we just sat there waiting, expecting something. Was there a line between waiting, do you think, and going too far?
Yeah, I mean, I think when the government decided to go to level 2, that was also the right decision because I think if they'd gone to level 3, that might have been a bit of an overstep. I guess the other thing is a lot of information emerged during the 2 days. One criticism I'd have, I think the Ministry of Health are going to have to get their head around getting in contact with businesses that are places of interest much more quickly than what they did. They really need to get on top of that because obviously if you're an impacted business and you only hear through the media, I'm not sure that that's a terrible experience, frankly, for the businesses that were affected.
Can we be too cautious?
Yeah, I think what you've seen from the government is the ability to iterate its response as we've kind of learned to live with COVID, at least on the outskirts of our communities or outside the borders, and sometimes inside the borders when people have it in MIQ. So what they've been able to do and think about is how you can have an alert level increase without having to go into a semi-lockdown state. And that's with being able to deploy testing really rapidly and being able to test a lot of people really, really quickly. And they appeared to be able to do that in Wellington. And the second thing is the contact tracing. I do think it's really important for customers and people who are going into businesses that they continue to scan the QR codes. The government's sort of indicated that they want to make it mandatory. I'm less confident about that as a process. I do think we could get there with people just doing the right thing and scanning every time they go into different places.
Well, at the end of the day, if it's mandatory, who is going to police it? Is it going to be the businesses? Do they have to hire someone at the front? You can't come in the shop unless you do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a point that's been well made by the Business New Zealand network that it decreases productivity, increases costs. Yes, it helps protect you against lockdowns or alert level increases, but at the same time, for those higher risk, those businesses that are much more people oriented, it's just an additional cost at a time when they've probably been bearing the brunt of COVID.
Where does it leave us with the TransTasman Bubble, bearing in mind that we want it to be open, we want tourists in this country, but now we're becoming, with the Delta variant, we're becoming very nervous that, as we discovered with Wellington, one person and it's all on again.
Yeah, I think it's important that we kind of keep to the hygienes around COVID. The TransTasman bubble is incredibly important, and keeping it open is incredibly important for our tourism operators who have been doing it pretty tough and are still doing it tough because obviously some of the Australians that were going to be coming here for their school holiday period are not able to make it, and for the beginning of our ski season, for example. It's an important part of the process of managing COVID and continuing to manage the risks related to COVID so we can get better and better and better at it. I think if we remain static, which is a real risk, we say we've got this, then I think we have problems. So we continue to change and iterate our risk management around it. We can manage it.
Certainly not going to have the number of Australians coming here during the school holidays that we thought we were going to. What are you hearing from businesses now about how bad that's going to be?
Yeah, I think, equally, of course, New Zealanders won't be travelling to Australia either. So there'll be a lot of disappointed New Zealanders and Australians with most of the bubble closed. What that means is New Zealanders are likely to, as we've seen before the bubble, travel around New Zealand a bit more. I think tourism operators, by and large, would be pretty disappointed, particularly if they'd seen a lot of cancelled bookings. That's going to be tough on them, and what has already been a tough time. I'm hoping that the government can see their way to continuing to provide additional support to the industry, because they really need it, and we need them to be strong as we kind of come out of COVID. If we want to have a premium tourism product, then we need to have a sector, and in order to do that, it needs to be supported.
Are you happy with MIQ?
That's a really tough question, Grant. I haven't been in MIQ myself, but I think the feedback that we get from businesses is that it's incredibly challenging if they have staff who are vaccinated and need to go offshore and do stuff like they might be maintaining a big piece of plant or equipment, or installing a big piece of plant or equipment offshore, and they have to come back in to New Zealand and quarantine. It's extremely difficult to get a quarantine spot. So I think the system itself could do with some upgrading. We would like to see a portion of MIQ partitioned off specifically for business purposes. We've got a situation coming up with the Dubai Expo, which was supposed to be in 2020, postponed. It's just check that. It's coming up in October this year. Exporters need to be able to get out to display a lot of the great export goods that we have and services. Go to Dubai, do the thing, of course, if the world's open, and then come back in. If they can't get an MIQ spot, they're not going to be able to do that. And that'll be a real disappointment, particularly given the government's made a pretty significant investment in Expo.
All right, seasonal workers. Now, the government has been changing the rules recently. They're allowing more and more, and is it enough?
I think the good news is that there are more and more coming in. They've also, continued to extend visas for people who are in New Zealand who are working in industries which really need them. I guess the question that the government has to ask itself is: are they okay with export receipts laying on the ground, if you like? Because we saw a little bit of that, or a reasonable amount of that in the last season, last horticultural season for apples, so on.
Strawberries.
Yeah. So what we don't want is that to happen, because that is really underpinning the strength in our economy. We want to be able to continue to meet global demand for high quality produce, and that's going to be even more important as we get towards the back end of negotiating the free trade agreement with the UK.
All right, finally, David Parker has released the exposure draft, and that's outlining the RMA replacement. It's the Natural and Built Environments Act. You've had a brief look at it. Any first thoughts?
Oh, look, you have to give credit to David Parker for taking on what is a massive piece of, massive and potentially transformational piece of legislative change, frankly. We'd been banging on about the RMA and how bad it was for years. Look, and there's a whole range of other parts of the planning system that Parker has fixed, if you like. The National Policy Statement for Housing, for example. This is only the first part of three separate parts that will replace the RMA, so we really need to see some of those other bits and the interaction between those pieces to know whether it will truly cure some of the worst parts of the Resource Management Act.
Kirk, see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.